to have those waived. What they're saying is just the equipment fees.
That's my understanding. That's the request.
Okay. So if we rent the equipment, we take the money and we put it into the park. If we don't rent the equipment but allow them to use it, they generate revenue, they put it into a trust fund at the community foundation, which presumably comes back to benefit the park, but we don't have confirmation of that.
Right. Yeah, I'd say that's a correct statement.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? Commissioner Carter.
Is there anybody here from the Community Foundation who can answer these questions?
No, but the fund, the money that has taken, to my understanding, because I was on the board for 20 years, is that any of the money that came out did go towards the park. Even the lighthouse project, I was not part of that, the decision, but of course, as you know, whether someone from the city was involved in the actual decision to spend the money, the city was involved in the process to allow it to happen. It didn't happen without city approval. I would make the recommendation, or certainly ascertain to our board, that we would, if that is considered deficiency by this commission, we would correct that deficiency and put it in place that the city commission is involved in the spending of those funds. Well, certainly we'll do that. I mean, that's the purpose of the funds, and that's, I agree that there should be someone from city staff or commission, as you would like, to help disperse those funds when the time comes.
Do we make a distinction between those community events that are conducted by charitable organizations where the proceeds go to that particular charity, or another event aside from the city, from those events that local residents get together and throw for the benefit of the city?
No, we don't.
We don't make that distinction.
No. And I mean, earlier today, when actually I was doing some business for my business, and I was queried by someone who I believe is on the Parties in the Park board. And Parties in the Park board also would like to come forward before this body to ask for some reduction in costs. And certainly Shoreline Spectacular later tonight under public is probably going to be discussing, from what I can see from a request to speak, about charges for their festival.
Right.
So I think we really need to be careful as to how we tread here for one versus the other, because what we do for one, we're going to be, and this is what I told the person who talked to me today. He indicated that some of the parties in the parks apparently are having a hard time making a profit, certainly compared to the days in the past. But so are we as a community when it comes to our budget, facing difficulties that we didn't face 10 years in the past. And I can speak from many of those that are in business. Things aren't the same as they were 10 years ago in the past. So we're all facing these types of issues. The question becomes is whether we as a body and we as a community can afford to subsidize others. If a nonprofit is not making money, I mean, I don't think we want them to make money at all the events that they have, but at the same point in time, can we put it on the backs of the taxpayers for any of the nonprofits to make money? I mean, they need to make good business decisions for their particular nonprofits, just the same as we do as a city to make the right decisions for the use of the taxpayers' money, just the same as those in the business community need to make the right business decisions for their businesses. And if you're not making money running an event, then maybe it's time to look at another way to either raise money or to make some other improvements on your event rather than on the backs of the taxpayers of the city.
I would agree with that, but if the event is to benefit the Red Cross or some other community organization, I can understand where you would want to recover our actual expenses. In a situation like this, if we were to forego $2,000 in order to get a $10,000 gift for the benefit of the citizens of the community, maybe that distinction would be the difference between doing it for any nonprofit who walks through the door is going to do it for their own church or community organization or United Way or whoever, Rotary, Optimist. That goes to their agenda and their revenue stream. This one in particular benefits the citizens. If we forego 2 and get 10, we're doing a good deed for the citizens of Muskegon.
And I would suggest to you that if we didn't forego 2 in this case, $2,400,
Mhm.
we'd get 76 if it was that way, instead of 10.
And we would be consistent with our policy.
And we'd be consistent with our policy and basically still be in the same boat.
Okay?
Vice Mayor Gowan.
Thanks, Mayor. I can take your point, and maybe we can look at those type of things. Of course, the mayor made a balanced observation on that, but until we're at a formalized or a codified relationship with a particular organization, I think it's just speculation. When we went through the exercise of reformulating the fee schedule some years back, it was during a point of recognition of the fact that, holy Moses, we had been expending a lot of, staff time, equipment expenses, for years with little payback for the cost of those efforts. So, it was a business decision on our part because we do have to cover our cost. And even with people, potentially picking up the equipment or whatnot, there's still wear, tear, and potential needs for replacement. I, for one, am going to hold fast to our policy because we have seen an influx and an uptick in the number of organizations and activities. And if we start splitting these hairs and begin these type of negotiations, I'm afraid it becomes never-ending. And it's not that these organizations are not valuable, and the activities that they present would not have a benefit to the community. But as the mayor said, at the same time, how much can the people, afford to contribute to these private concerns? We're not the nonprofit. We're the representative of the citizenry and the stewards of, their funds, their monies. And right now, when we're trying to keep people in uniform and the desks manned and the phones manned, I think we have to be very careful and stand fast to our policies, which were developed some years back, for a very good reason.
Well, I see us putting ourselves in the same category as every other nonprofit in the community. If we're going to charge ourselves, we can't charge others without charging ourselves, and the mayor makes a very valid point. And so I understand both sides of the issue now. I appreciate the clarification.
Commissioner Carter.
Just, when it comes to renting the equipment, I assume the difference between if they rent it and we do it, and they rent it and they do it, is just the cost of our labor from doing it ourselves, right? So there is no distinguish between.
We had the labor costs.
Yeah, that's the difference basically. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether they rent it or we do it. The rental part of it is the same. Okay.
How do you think it's going so far, man?
It's not looking good for the home team.
Well, if the home team's the city, it's looking good for us, but I understand. And I understand as a new event for you and the Shoreline Spectacular folks, that any assistance that you can get is important to the beginning success of an event. But we still, as the elected officials of the city, have to take a look and say what makes sense for the citizenry overall. And we've set a policy and to do for one and not do for another. And if we do for one, then we have to do for everyone else. And
Well, and I don't disagree, Commissioners, in that regard. I guess that's why we focused our letter to the city manager on the fact that this is our first year under the new name down there, and that, so I think there's something to be said for helping out, including Shoreline, new events that come to the city to give them a chance to make it their first year or so versus, a long-standing event that's, went on and on and on and on and on for years and years, where I agree with you, you have to make good, sound decisions. A festival has to make the same kind of decisions. If a festival doesn't make money and loses money, then they shouldn't be, they should move on and not have the festival. So those were the considerations we were asking, just for the use of the equipment, us doing all the work this first year to help us maintain costs and keep the costs down to allow the festival to happen and make some money this year. And we certainly would be amenable, if the commission were so desirable, to relook at the figures that were presented and maybe even give us, if not a full amount, maybe a discount this first year, for something. So, but we leave it in your capable hands, I guess.
Any other questions or discussion? Call the question. Remember, the question is to not approve the special event request for Big Water Festival and Labor Day week. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Waringo?
I'm voting, again, yes. Thank you.
Commissioner Wisniewski?
A yes vote means to not approve? Yes.
Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gallren?
Yes.
Commissioner Spataro?
Yes.
Mayor Warmington?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item C, please.
Concurrence with the Housing Board of Appeals notice